Okay, now the boring bit is cleaning it all up, which I do with just petrol and a paintbrush. This is the main burner pot. So the fuel will come in here and just slowly start to trickle into the bottom of the pot. The only other thing I've got to show you is this thing here, because this does get clogged up with soot, so you've got this kind of little spade that you can just use to make sure that this is clear. I'll just show you that. It's got lots of holes in it, top and bottom, help the air get into it. Okay, I just want to deal with the body now. So once fuel gets past this valve, it goes in here into this chamber. Right, it's a long chamber, and in there goes a fuel filter, which I didn't have with this one, but luckily I've got a spare, and in that was a very, very horrible, disgusting, clogged up filter, which I've now cleaned, and I'm going to put it in here. So that will keep your fuel reasonably clean and allows the fuel to go into this hole after it's been through the filter and to fill the chamber up. This is the diesel filter, which I got out my spare regulator, and that basically slots into that like that. You've got a nice little thing to pull it out to clean it. There is a thermocouple that's in the stove, which is a clever little thing that produces voltage when hot. It's a mixture of two metals, and somehow by some strange magic, when you heat it up, it produces a voltage because of the difference between the two metals. But I don't really understand that. Anyway, and it sort of is connected by a sort of a copper, sort of bendy copper pipe almost. But all that does is to give the voltage to this, which is a electromagnetic valve, and the thermocouple produces just enough voltage to make this valve work and open up. So that when the thermocouple gets cold, i.e. the fire went out for some reason, maybe as a blow down the chimney or something blew the fire out, then the thermocouple cools and no longer produces a voltage, and this plunger will shut and stop any more diesel flooding your fire. Right, now the only other way this valve can open is manually, by this little switch at the bottom. This push switch just pushes up onto that valve and opens it. Now on the bottom of the fire is a kind of there's it's like a long rod that goes to the front of the fire, and if it basically pushes down a bit like a seesaw, and the back end of it pushes up on this device here. So basically what you've got to do is hold that bar down when the fire is cold, because otherwise, until the thermocouple warms up and opens the valve properly, you have to keep it open manually, otherwise you won't get any diesel into the fire. Right, okay guys, we're going to have a little bit of an experiment here, just to prove that this thing is working, this thermocouple. So we've got the old multimeter out here, and I'm going to turn it to DC milliamps. Right, we're taking the positive and I'm putting it on the end here, the very tip, and the negative goes on anywhere on a copper pipe, really, on a copper tube. We put the flame on the hot end. See the voltmeter going up, 10, 15, 16, 18, 20. So we should get about 20 milliamps, I think, millivolts rather, 22. And this is a hot little torch here, so hopefully you can see that, 28. Right, we're getting 30 millivolts out of that. If I take the flame away, you'll see it's starting to cool and the voltage drop. Here's the control. You got the off, a pilot setting, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In fact, it's got 6 or no, 6, I think that's 9, all the way up to 9. 1 to 9 is your high-low control. Okay, now if we take that off, it's got a gasket. Here is your main gubbins. You've got a simple needle valve here, which when it's down is off, and that stops diesel coming into the chamber. You've got this little thing, which is a piston that goes up and down. There's a hole, and basically with the piston up, you're allowing diesel to go out of this chamber and off to the fire. And when that shuts, then that closes that down. So the piston under here. I'll show you that that's the piston. If you can see the hole down here. Great. Right, so that's that. Now this, okay, it's a float. Now this little screw here acts on our needle valve. So as the float rises, it shuts off the flow of diesel into the chamber. Alright, so that's quite easy. Right, so at the moment we're on pilot, which is, it all works just on the level of this sprung loaded pin, really. So here's the pilot setting, I'm thinking. And that obviously is set at such a level as to just keep the fire alight, just to keep the fire alive. And as you start to turn the fire up, whoops, so this allows the piston, as you turn it up, the piston rises. This allows our little needle valve here, or a little piston valve, to come up because it's sprung and allow more fuel into the fire. So that's maximum fuel, high, and that's minimum fuel, low. But there is this other setting here, which is a kind of jump setting. You have to pull it up. Now I think this is the stop setting. Okay, now I think I've sussed the stop setting, I think. Right, so in the normal pilot setting, that is obviously just enough fuel to keep the fire running, and the float can still rise up and turn itself off, keep the level. But when you do this and turn it off, you pull this little sprung loaded thing up completely out the way, and then your float will just keep rising until it completely turns the fuel off. Right, maybe best to see from the back here. When I put it onto stop, that little thing lifts up, allows the float to just fully come up, I think, because that is acting on that to keep it at a level. That allows the float to completely be free. Anyway, man, beyond me. But next thing is I'm going to sling it together. It's all nice and clean now. I'm going to sling it together and just have a go with it outside, run the fire up and see if it works, basically. Hiya, right, we're back in the shed again today, looking to rebuild the rather badly sprayed Old English here. Right, so we need to position this where this bar can act on that button. And that's just basically to reflect the heat outwards, I think. This has come up lovely. This was originally red. lump. Yeah, so I've taken the glass off and got some Vitcas glass tape, which is self-adhesive glass tape, 15mm by 2mm, and put a couple of strips of that all round and screwed it back together, and it holds the glass really nicely. Glass was very smoky and horrible, and I cleaned it off with just ordinary Windoline. It seemed to work really well. So, next up is this little kit here. We have heat resistant rope adhesive, a pair of gloves which I won't be bothered with, and 2 meters of rope. I think this is the 10mm stuff. Right, so that goes in there. The door seal, which I've not been able to get, so I'm going to reuse the old one, which is actually not in too bad a condition. I'm just going to give it a big squirt of this adhesive and stick it back in. Right, that seems to have made quite a nice tight seal. That's called the catalyst, which glows hot and helps the diesel to evaporate and burn. We've got a gasket around the top here, so I've got a thicker gasket for that, and also put the radiator in. Thermocouple, which goes through this little hole kind of here, which comes out basically at the fire. We'll have a look at that in a minute, and that screws on there. Right, it's sticking out here. We want it to be kind of there, so I'm just gonna put that back where it was. Okay, so that is everything back together, I believe, and ready to rock and roll. We need to, work out some kind of fuel tank arrangement, which I think we're going to do tomorrow, and get that plugged into there, and see if we can get this baby to light. So that's tomorrow's job. But so far so good. It's all back together, and I think it's actually looking quite good. Could probably do with another coat of paint on the top, but yeah, there you go. 1997 Kabola Old English. Yeah, see how we go. See if the valve works. See if everything works. Yeah, looking forward to being toasty warm. Okay, welcome to the fire test bed. So I've got the make do chimney, which was the original out of the boat anyway. Just throwing that on there with a bit of flue cement, and our fuel tank pipe and fittings going in the back here, and so we should be ready to rock and roll. I've turned it all the way up and managed to get diesel to come out into the burner, so that's quite good. Okay, what I've done is to throw in 3 capfuls of meths into the burner here, and I'm just going to throw a match on it. See in there, it is still alight, and I should be letting oil in using this control here. Right, now the thermocouple should be getting hot. So now let go of the kind of safety valve override, and fires on 2, and it seems to be cracking away quite nicely. So already getting properly hot, like properly hot on the top there. That is pretty pleasing. Look at that, pretty as. So there you go. Hopefully that's a successful test, but I'm going to give it a few more minutes and I'm going to turn it up, see what happens then. But all in all, very pleased with this. I think it's a jolly nice little thing. If we can get the chimney sorted out, it's going to be a very toasty addition to the boat. Bearing in mind it came with the boat, and I've probably spent all of, I don't know, probably 20 quid in bits, just new gaskets and bits and pieces and paint, and that's about it.